Tuesday, y'all. You know what that means. It's time for our first D2 Tuesday of 2024. And you're looking at your calendar. It's January 9th. You're doing D2 Tuesday on January 9th. Yes, I'm doing D2 Tuesday on January the 9th. Because this year is extra special. I sound like that lady in that freaking Carfax commercial. And this one is special. And this one is extra special. But we're going to be that as it may, folks. My name is Victor Anderson. Glad that you're rocking with us on this Tuesday. We're going to be doing this every Tuesday from now until the end of May, where a national champion is crowned in our backyard here in the state of Florida. And yes, In the Circle will be in the house when the D2 national champion is crowned. So today's show is going to kind of be like a little introduction of what we're going to do on D2 Tuesday throughout the year. Give our thoughts on the ESPN NCAA Media deal, which after reading closely might be some good news for you D2 softball fans. And we will talk about one of the greats in D2 getting inducted into the NFCA Hall of Fame for 2024. But first, folks, let's get into the format. Now, every Tuesday, we will be having D2 Tuesday, 2 p.m. Eastern-ish. Some weeks it will be right here on our YouTube channel. Some weeks it will be on our podcasting feed. And some weeks it might be both. We will let you know on our social media pages a couple of days in advance. So just be on the lookout for that. Also, unlike last year, we will work to have coaches on periodically on D2 Tuesday. We already have some coaches in mind that we're going to be reaching out to get them on hopefully prior to the start of the season. And of course, as the season goes forward, we will try and make some things happen based on coaches' availability and schedules. We've already reached out to several coaches and just waiting to hear back on when we will have them on our podcast or our show, so to speak. Also, on D2 Tuesday, we will, once we get closer to the season, so about the January 30th edition, so 3 weeks from today, we're going to start talking about one D2 conference or multiple every week until we get to the national championship and the national champion is crowned. So be on the lookout for that. One D2 conference will be discussed every week starting on January the 30th. The week before that, January 23rd, is when the 2024 D2 preseason poll is announced. We will talk about that in great detail coming up on that D2 Tuesday, which is going to be 2 weeks from now on January 23rd. And then every Tuesday thereafter, we will discuss the latest D2 poll, which will be announced Tuesdays at 12 noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific time. So we got pretty much the substance of what our D2 Tuesdays will be about. Breaking down the latest polls, talking about a particular conference, possibly having coaches on the show, other guests, and just recapping the week that was in D2 softball. And this is where your participation comes into play. Use the hashtag D2 Tuesday. So that's going to be the letter D, the number 2, and Tuesday. I try a little substitution with D2 and then try to put Tuesday using the 2. It did not work very well. So use the hashtag D2 Tuesday and we will get your feedback possibly on a future episode of D2 Tuesday. Now, let's get into this new ESPN NCAA Media deal. D2 softball fans, we are in luck. We have made it, ladies and gentlemen, because as a part of the new 8-year agreement between the NCAA and ESPN, which begins September 1st, of the 40 championships that will be a part of this deal, softball is not included. Yeah. Yeah. And I, for one, am not happy about that. We all know that softball has grown. The numbers are up each and every year. More eyeballs are on the sport than ever before. Not only on linear TV, but social media impressions, web streams, views on streaming outlets. The growth of the sport over the last 5 years, especially since Eric and I started in the circle back in summer 2015, early 2016, it has been absolutely remarkable. Yet for some reason, D2 softball always seems to kind of get placed on that back burner. They don't get the proper respect and attention as his bigger counterpart. And heck, you could make the same argument for Division III in that particular case. My point, ladies and gentlemen, is how can ESPN talk about growing softball and being a partner with the NCAA, and you sign a deal that includes D2 volleyball, and your thinking is that, well, volleyball ratings are increasing. Well, softball is lapping volleyball and knocking it out the park. But yet you don't include D2 volleyball in the deal. The deal includes, on the Division II side, Division II football, Division II men's basketball, semifinals and finals, Division II women's basketball, D2 volleyball, as I just referenced. But yet, no mention of D2 softball. This is an 8-year deal, ladies and gentlemen, and worth in excess of $150-200 million. And yet D2 softball, once again, gets left by the wayside. And the thing that irks me even more is that you have a platform on ESPN Plus, which, according to this press release from the NCAA, includes 24,000 college games each year, spanning more than 20 conferences, effectively linking regular season and championship viewing for fans. Also, in this deal, more than 2,300 hours of championships will be presented on ESPN's linear and digital platforms annually, with more than 800 hours of NCAA championships on ESPN linear networks each year. So the network that broadcasts AUX softball, Athletes Unlimited softball, the Little League Softball World Series, the Senior League Softball World Series, and of course college softball, which we've known has grown leaps and bounds thanks to the leadership of Meg Aronowitz. Record-breaking numbers each year. You don't want to bring D2 to the party? And yet D2 fans are fight for respect, relevancy, and attention presses forward. But not to worry. That's why D2 Tuesday is here to give you that attention, that spotlight that you so richly deserve. Speaking of spotlights that are richly deserved, Gretta Melsted will be in the spotlight next year as she, along with Connie Clark, former Texas head coach, and Florida's head coach Tim Walton, that trio will be inducted to the NFCA Hall of Fame. They will be inducted Friday, December 6th, 2024 in Dallas, Texas. Coach Melsted, you know her numbers, you know her resume. 18 seasons at Augustana. That'll be her 18th season in 2024. 21st overall as a college head coach. Won the national championship in 2019. Had her on the podcast to talk about that. Has made 11 NCAA tournament appearances. 15 consecutive winning seasons. 40 wins, 10 occasions. 50 wins, 4 occasions. And, of course, that national championship run where they had a program record 61 victories. She is 37 wins away from reaching 800 wins for her career, which includes 3 seasons at Culver Stockton. She has 682 wins at Augustana, so she'll reach the 700-win platform at Augustana this year, and 800 career coaching wins this year. Again, she'll need 37 to get to that number. And listen to this record in Northern Sun play. 331 and 78. Again, conference play, Northern Sun. 331 and 78. So for you math people at home, that's a winning percentage of 736 in conference play alone. 3 trips to the D2 National Championships, or I call it the D2 World Series. 3 Super Regionals, 3 Central Region titles, 5 Northern Sun regular season titles, 3 Northern Sun tournament titles, 86 all-conference performers, 44 all-region performers, 20 NFCA All-Americans, and has had 14 different season award winners in the conference. Player of the Year, Pitcher of the Year, Newcomer of the Year, Freshman of the Year. And she is also a 5-time Northern Sun Coach of the Year and has served on the NFCA's D2 board as a representative. So, congratulations to Coach Melsted. We will certainly work to try and have her on the podcast to talk about her Hall of Fame induction and the Vikings outlook for 2024, as they'll be looking to make it to Longwood. Now, my partner Eric Lopez on In the Circle has asked me to try and come up with this a catchy phrase to highlight the team's path to get to Longwood, like the road to the Final Four and all that stuff. I've tossed and turned. I've written down things. I've thought out things. I've spoken things into the ether. And I'll be perfectly honest with you folks. Nothing has rolled off the tongue that fits with going to Longwood. I mean, you can mention Central Florida. I mean, you can't really reference Orlando because it's not being held in Orlando. I mean, technically speaking, yes, it's Orlando, but according to the NCAA, it's in Longwood. I'll try and think of something between now and when the regular season starts about what the path to this year's national championship will be. But I will be real and honest with you, my D2 family. It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. Although looking at the NCAA website and the site of the championships in Longwood, I think I may have come up with an idea. But you'll have to listen to next week's D2 Tuesday to find out what specifically that's going to be. One other thing I do want to share before we roll on out of here. Rule changes in the NCAA. And this will impact D2 mostly. Time between pitches and action. So according to the rule, The time between the next pitch will be reduced from 25 seconds to 20 seconds. Also, teams will have the option, that's what happens when you look at something live, you get that background noise. The batter must be ready to hit still within 10 seconds, or a strike will be assessed to the batter. If pitchers do not begin their windup before the rest of time expires, a ball will be awarded to the batter. If teams choose not to have a visible pitch clock, and most of D2 facilities will not have a pitch clock visible, the umpires would keep the time on the field. Previously, the batter and the catcher had 10 seconds to be in position to play after the pitcher receives the ball. Pitchers then had 10 seconds to bring their hands together while receiving a signal as to what pitch to throw. The pitcher then had 5 seconds to deliver the pitch. I don't know if you're going to see this as much in Division II because I don't think you have as much time between pitches. But it's something that you will likely keep in mind as we go into the 2024 season. Now, another rule that is going to be updated, the double base. Of course, with that's something that you see in an international game. Those double bases, as if umpires have enough on their plates as is. In addition, prohibiting assistant coaches from leaving the dugout or bullpen area to appeal, question, or argue any play on the field. And I think the big one as well is that pitchers being allowed to disengage from the playing surface. Now, they say in the rule, the pitcher's pivot foot can become airborne with one push from the pitcher's plate. However, pitchers will not be allowed to replant their pivot foot, resulting in pushing off from a second point and the pitcher being further away from the pitcher's plate, or the rubber, as I like to say. NCAA Softball Rules Committee members think whether the pivot foot stays in contact with the ground or is airborne, there is no advantage gained by the pitcher. There's been so much talk about illegal pitches, and there's been discussion about this so much in the sport. Thankfully, at least I think, there's going to be some clarity about that particular rule. Whether the umpires are going to actually enforce that rule remains to be seen. We will have to wait and see when the season starts in that opening week of February 1st through the 4th. And that's all, ladies and gentlemen. I told you it was going to be a light show because this is the first one of the year. But as we get rolling, as we get ramped up towards the start of the 2024 season, trust me, we're going to have more extensive podcasts on D2 Tuesday. We are working on trying to have some guests on before the start of the season. And, of course, we're going to have a D2 season preview. Just for a reminder, ladies and gentlemen, every Tuesday, 2 p.m.-ish, so to speak. So keep that in mind as well. We're going to talk about the Division II poll, the preseason poll that will be released 2 weeks from today, the 23rd. We're going to talk about that in length on our D2 Tuesday on that day, the 23rd. And then the 30th, we will have our D2 season preview. We may have guests. And then, of course, we're going to start talking about D2 conferences for 2024. So, folks, that's going to do it for our season debut of D2 Tuesday. We appreciate you listening to us. Make sure you listen to our most recent episode of In the Circle with Arizona head coach Caitlin Lowe. We're going to be running 3 regular In the Circle episodes the rest of the month up until the start of the D1 season. And, of course, D2 Tuesday we'll have you covered right here. Some weeks on the YouTube channel, some weeks in the podcast form, some weeks both. So be on the lookout for that. I will talk to you guys next Tuesday. Victor Anderson signing out. And remember, there's more of us than there are of them. Top podcaster out. Good night, Canada.